Hello, everybody. My name is Iwanicki. I'm the superintendent of the Veterans Assistance Commission in McHenry County. Our office is located at the McHenry County Government Center in Woodstock. We're in the administration building right on the main floor where we can be easily found. The VAC is actually a hybrid government organization. It was created by the veteran service organizations such as the American Legion, VFW, Elderwerks, and I know if I forget one, I'll hear about it later. But those organizations pulled together and petitioned the county board to create a central benefits office. And we are the result. So the oversight committee that makes sure that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing is actually veteran service organizations themselves, the American Legion, Elderwerks, VAB, Polish Legion, all of those guys. What we're going to talk about today, what I was asked to talk about, is some of the veterans benefits that people may or may not know about, and some changes or new developments as far as what's going on in the world of veterans benefits and veterans affairs. I was also told not to say too much, so if I say it, please jump up and applaud. I was also told not to run around the stage too much because I'm being filmed. So, of course, that's probably what I'm going to do. Joining me today is one of our service officers, Cecilia Gaines, and she helps us prosecute claims. So, one of the props they typically like to bring, but I found it doesn't go over too well when they bring it, is the book on veterans law. When somebody comes in and asks us, I'd like to know about all my benefits, that's pretty much a daunting task because the federal guideline on veterans benefits, just the law itself, fills a book that's 8.5 by 11 by about 2 or 3 inches thick. There's a second book attached to that that explains the first one. We get a new one every year. So no, I have not read the current one. Every year, the VA updates the law, and they add stuff to it. And a lot of the things they updated on is based on information from the National Academy of Medicine. And they are the ones who do the statistical research to find out what is going to be considered service-connected. Right now, there's a couple of developments that happened in the past that I really wanted to address. They address every one of these things. Back in 2008, the VA determined that ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, is something that was happening in the veterans community at a much higher rate than was happening in the regular population. So what ended up happening is ALS was determined to be service-connectable if a veteran who served a minimum 90 days consecutively active duty time in any of the armed forces during any period later develops Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS, it's automatically considered to be service-connected. And it's service-connected at 100%. They consider it totally disabled. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the VA, they go into percentiles for disability ratings. It doesn't stop at 100%, they go into letters. So depending on how severe it is, we actually have some individuals who are suffering with ALS who are getting the highest rating of R2. And these are individuals who are in a skilled care situation at this point. So that's one thing that happened. The VA was very good about getting it out to the veterans community. They weren't effective at getting it out to the families of service members who passed away from ALS prior to the law going into effect. So there are surviving spouses out there whose loved one died of Lou Gehrig's disease who have no idea that they're eligible for a benefit from the VA. And that benefit includes something called pendency and indemnity, which is like an insurance policy against loss. It's a monthly payment the VA provides. They also provide something called CHAMP VA, which is a health insurance policy. And these are all very big, important benefits, especially if the surviving spouse is a little bit older and is on a fixed income. This is something very nice to have. In 2010, the VA came out with a study based on veterans who were exposed to Agent Orange in Vietnam and in other locations that basically came out and said that ischemic heart disease is related to exposure to Agent Orange. Now, since then, as many people know, Agent Orange has also been found to be used in other countries. They denied use in Thailand for years. It turned out if you were in the Air Force and you served on bases in Thailand, chances are you were exposed to Agent Orange. Vietnam, of course, they were exposed to Agent Orange. And there's some places in the United States and other countries where they were exposed to Agent Orange. The ischemic heart disease is basically a plumbing issue. Of the things that go wrong with your heart, you've got some that are electrical issues, some that are plumbing issues. The plumbing issue is what the VA is compensating Vietnam veterans and those exposed to Agent Orange for. And so if a person had bypass surgery, a person had stents put in because of potential heart attack, the VA is compensating these veterans who are exposed to Agent Orange for these diseases. Another thing that happened in 2010, which caused a great deal of confusion for everybody, including service officers, was they conceded that peripheral neuropathy was related to exposure to Agent Orange. And this came out in all kinds of newsletters. It came out in the veterans magazines, such as published by the VFW, American Legion, and everybody was discussing it. What the VA wasn't clear about was it was early onset peripheral neuropathy, and the peripheral neuropathy had to be diagnosed within 12 months of exposure to Agent Orange. How many people here, by show of hands, remembers your doctor from 40 years ago? Once more thought of asking him for something that was just a minor nuisance from him. Well, there was a lot of claims that were going out for peripheral neuropathy related to Agent Orange that were denied because, unfortunately, the service member couldn't prove a diagnosis within 12 months of getting out of Vietnam. I had some choice words from some person legislators on that one. So that's what I try. That's some of the things that are going on right now. And especially when you're also talking about ischemic heart disease, if a veteran had previously applied for ischemic heart disease and was denied, let's say they applied in 2002 and said their ischemic heart disease was related to their diabetes, which was found to be related to Agent Orange, and the VA denied it. Well, this decision in 2010 didn't have a date saying you can only go back and pay claims 1 year. What that meant was that a decision in 1985 called the Niemer case that was at the Court of Veterans Appeals for Veterans Claims went into effect. Now, Niemer was important because what it specifically said is if the VA adds a condition related to Agent Orange exposure, and the veteran had previously applied for it and was denied, and it's not presumptive, the VA shall go back to the original date that veteran applied for service connection for that condition. In this case, that veteran who applied for ischemic heart disease in 2002 and was denied, and re-adjudicate it from that point. When that decision came out and it was prosecuted using Niemer, we had many veterans who were getting their claims backdated all the way to, I've had some that went back into the 1990s. So they were getting some very large compensation checks from the VA. And if you don't believe that's life-changing for some people, we had one gentleman who was on the verge of homelessness who all of a sudden gets a $400,000 check from the VA because that ischemic heart disease he claimed in 1994 was determined to be service-connected based on this decision. So what's new going on at the VA right now? Well, one of the new ones, and it's not really new, it happened in 2010 again. Prior to 2010, if you applied for VA health care, based on a 2003 decision, the VA was considering your assets. So they would look at your income and assets, and if you have no service-connected conditions and you were applying for VA health care, they were denying based on, well, as I said, rich beyond your wildest dreams. They were saying that your assets are too high, and they were denying based on that. In 2010, they took away the asset book, so now all they're looking at is income. They're looking at income and what your current medical expenses are. So people who have applied prior to 2010 were denied because they said they were rich beyond their wildest dreams because they had too many assets. Those people are being encouraged to reapply for VA health care. And we're finding many of them are getting in now. Blue water. There has been a big issue with Agent Orange and blue water sailors. Haas versus Nicholson was the name of the case. It was prosecuted all the way to the U.S. Circuit Court. The Supreme Court wouldn't hear it. The argument was being made that there is research that was shown by another company, by another country, I'm sorry, that the Agent Orange that washed into the bays and into the Gulf was being picked up by the ships, and the evaporators weren't taking it out of the water. So the evaporators, for those who weren't in the Navy, the evaporators took the salt out of the water and made it useful so people who were, you need fresh water to drink, food preparation, and for the steamships, the boilers need to have fresh water. They can't put boilers and run salt through steam. That's very bad for the equipment. So they were saying that the dioxins in Agent Orange weren't taken out in that process, and the sailors were actually drinking it. The VA said unless they stood on dry land in Vietnam, they weren't exposed to Agent Orange. So the case in Haas versus Nicholson, when they went to the Court of Appeals for Veterans Claims, the VA claimed that they had to be on dry land. The National Veterans Legal Services Program attorney said, well, let's take a Marine. He's being brought ashore on a landing craft. He's in waist deep of water, gets to ankle deep of water, gets shot, falls back, and is taken back to the ship for treatment. Was he exposed to Agent Orange? And the VA said he never made it to dry land, so no, he was never exposed. And unfortunately, that case is the one that ended up being upheld by the Supreme Court not hearing. So right now, there is a bill in Congress, H.R. 299, that's addressing the blue water sailors. And it's going to make the VA acknowledge that some of these blue water sailors were, in fact, exposed to Agent Orange. One of the things that was conceded by the VA and by the Department of Defense is that there were ships, in fact, who were ported in Vietnam, and those sailors were likely exposed to Agent Orange. The only thing you have to prove is did that veteran step off the ship. The veteran stepped off the ship onto the dock in Vietnam, they are considered exposed. If they stayed on the ship, they weren't. Blue Water Navy bill that's currently in the House is hopefully going to address that issue. The only issue, and I looked at it recently, it doesn't seem to address is those sailors who were on carriers in the Tonkin Gulf. I did not see the Tonkin Gulf and the aircraft carriers that served in that region expressively on the bill, but a lot of other locations were. So hopefully this goes through. Another thing that's recently come up is the issue with burn pits. Any Army veterans in here? Did you have burn pits back in your era? Just about every area did get burn pits. Right now they use burn pits in the desert, and unfortunately some of the stuff they were burning was a lot more toxic than before. So a lot of the younger Army guys are coming up with problems. So they're trying to determine what those problems are, and there's some legislation to recognize that burn pits did have some effect on people who were exposed to them. And my concern is it wasn't just the people in Iraq and Afghanistan who had burn pits. They had burn pits for World War II, they had in Korea, they had in Vietnam. And they had a lot less protection in those areas than they do now for people who were exposed to it. So hopefully that'll open the door to address those as well. Recently, the Secretary of the VA announced that he was open to considering some other conditions that are related to Agent Orange. He said there's 4, but he never named what 4 they were. Speculation is that at least 2 of them are currently Parkinson's disease is considered presumptive for anybody who served in Vietnam and anybody who's exposed to Agent Orange. But Parkinson's-like conditions is not, despite the fact that the National Academy of Medicine said it should be. We think that possibly the Secretary might be referring to that. Hypertension, high blood pressure keeps coming up. The VA's argument against hypertension is something that happens to adults as they get older. You got me. So we'll find out where that comes, but we believe that's also being considered. More currently, any Marines? I had to bring notes on this one because it's still too new. I've been with the commission for 20 years, and the VA still surprises me. Camp Lejeune, you may have heard in the news, there's some contaminated water at Camp Lejeune, and it not only affected the Marines and other forces that served there, but it wasn't just the Marines that served there, sometimes they had joint forces over there. But basically, if you were drinking the water, there was a good possibility that in the early on, because it went from 57 to 87, chances are you were exposed to some of the toxins that they had in the water, which included benzene and some other wonderful stuff that was being dumped and finding its way into the water table. There's a number of qualifying health conditions that family members who were stationed over at Camp Lejeune are going to be eligible for health care as a consequence or reimbursement for health care. And some of the bigger ones are esophageal cancer, breast cancer, kidney cancer, multiple myeloma, really bad one, renal toxicity, infertility, and a number of other issues. There's a whole list of them. I would say if you know of or have family who served at Camp Lejeune between 57 and 87, and they suffer some condition, you want to get in contact with us so we can tell them what it is, whether it's on the list, and if they're eligible to have medical reimbursement. As far as the Marines and other service members who are stationed there, the VA has a presumptive list of conditions, which includes adult leukemia, bladder cancer, kidney cancer, liver cancer, multiple myeloma, and Parkinson's disease. The list for qualifying health conditions for health care is much larger than the list of presumptive conditions. If a service member who served over at Camp Lejeune during that period gets any of those qualifying health conditions, they're automatically considered eligible for VA health care. Veterans who served in in-country Vietnam are also automatically considered for VA health care. Does anybody in here currently use VA health care? Does anybody in here currently use VA health care? Okay. How many in-country Vietnam veterans do we have? How many in-country Vietnam veterans do we have here? Thailand? Probably talking to some. Okay. I'm going to get into some interesting stuff, then I'll open it up to questions for you. There is a interesting study that was done not too long ago, and for those who are service-connected for diabetes mellitus, type 2 diabetes, unfortunately, it's not very good news. They're finding that people who are diabetic are far more susceptible to developing cancer than the population who is not diabetic. More concerning is bladder cancer, which is very treatable. If a person who is male has bladder cancer and diabetes mellitus, there's a significantly higher mortality rate. They're less likely to recover from bladder cancer than their female counterparts who have bladder cancer and diabetes. They're not sure why, but that's something that's going on right now. I have a couple of test cases going on right now to see if I can get the VA to recognize that. We'll see. But unfortunately, that is a problem. One of the big issues we have with VA healthcare is a lot of veterans are in VA healthcare and they're hoping to get dental. Dental services are currently not offered by the VA unless you're service-connected for a dental condition. You know, one of those would be if you have your jaw broken in the military and you're service-connected for that broken jaw, they'll take care of your dental. If you don't have a dental condition and you're not 100% service-connected, because that's another way to do it, if you're 100% service-connected for a dental condition, or on pension, like aid and attendance, then you'll be eligible for dental. If not, you won't. There is a possibility of becoming service-connected for dental, and we use diabetes again as a case. An individual has diabetes mellitus and has no idea. Their uncontrolled diabetes potentially can cause stage 3 gingivitis. It's a severe form of gingivitis. Everybody knows what that is. It's like gum disease. It's a form of deteriorating gums. Stage 3 means they lost about 15%. But that's one of the cases that I brought not too long ago. The individual didn't know they were diabetic. They lost about 15% gum tissue, which caused some tooth problems. And we got a letter, and it was his dentist who suspected he was diabetic, and we proved he was diabetic, and then he was service-connected for diabetes. And we sent a notice to the Veterans Benefits Administration requesting that they service-connect him for stage 3 gingivitis with 15% tissue loss as a consequence of having uncontrolled diabetes, which was now service-connected. Interestingly enough, out the gate, the VA returned it and said, there is no evidence that diabetes would cause stage 3 gingivitis, and the fact that when his diabetes came under control, his gingivitis stabilized is merely coincident. Obviously, we fought that one, and the individual ended up being service-connected for dental services. Other examples is if a person is developed cancer as a result of something to do with his or her military service. Oftentimes, the cancer drugs will impact that individual's dental, and we also can service-connect individuals for dental that way. If in doubt, you can ask your dentist, can this condition cause me to have more significant dental problems? And if they say yes, there's a possibility we can service-connect that individual for dental if that condition is related to military service. As long as we're on the topic of dental services, does everybody know that VA approved dental insurance for persons using the VA healthcare system? Is everybody familiar with that? It was approved through 2021. There is 2 companies that are doing it. It's a low-cost dental program, and you're able to use your local dentist. It's administered and funded partially through the VA. If you're good surfing the web and VA programs, you can find it on the VA. Otherwise, you can just contact our office, and we have the sponsored dental insurance through either Delta Dental or MetLife dental program. And in some cases, the dental will also cover the spouse. Yes, sir.
What do you consider low cost?
Hold on a second.
What do you consider low cost? Low cost.
We want the camera to pick it up too, because that's an excellent question.
All right, sir.
What he's asking is, what do I consider low cost? It depends on the insurance company. I think the highest one, the most comprehensive one is like $45, $46 a month.
Thank you.
So it's not that bad. So those are something that's being offered by the VA. Okay, as far as healthcare is concerned, aging veterans becomes an issue for healthcare. Obviously, it's something the VA wants to help that veteran, VA healthcare wants to help that veteran be as independent as long as possible. And let's face it, stay out of assisted living and stay out of a skilled care facility as long as they possibly can. So there's a number of grants that the VA Health Administration is able to offer veterans who have a need for it. One of them is through like a HISA grant. What that does is if the veteran is having trouble with mobility and can't get into their house anymore, they can go to their VA doctor and literally get a prescription to have a ramp put in their home. And the VA will pay to have a ramp put in that veteran's home. Other things they can do at the Health Administration side is they can also help the veteran with accessibility stuff, like if they need a bathroom upgraded so they can take a shower, or actually have access to the sink, or have some plumbing fixtures changed up so they can get in and out of the bathroom. The VA can help with that. If in one case we had a veteran who only had one bathroom in the house and was on the second floor, that veteran was able to get I call them wee-wee chairs, but they were able to get one of those chair lifts that could get him up to the second floor so he could use the washroom. These are all important things to everybody, and it helps keep that veteran in the home as long as possible. But it doesn't end there. The VA doctor can also prescribe a number of hours of in-home care. So if the veteran is housebound and needs help with things around the house, needs help with basic health needs, bathing, stuff like that, the VA doctor can prescribe a number of hours of in-home care, and you can hire an agency to come in and provide that care at the VA's expense. They'll have some recommended people to go to, but they can do that for you. Other things is they can prescribe adult daycare. Is everybody here from McHenry County? One of the providers, and they're right here at the senior field, is Family Alliance in Woodstock, and they have another facility in Huntley. They can provide adult daycare, and the VA will pay you. But you have to have that prescription from the doctor. If you try to pay it for yourself or find another location to do it, it's kind of pricey, but it can be done. Medicaid also has some provisions where they can help with that. I'm not going to get into Medicaid, I'm more VA. I don't understand the VA, I don't begin with Social Security, they're fun too. But these are some of the interesting things that are going on right now. These are some of the benefits you can get from VA. We're going to break from it. Does anybody have any questions at this point, specific to them? Or Cecilia? This young lady right here.
What service in the military will affect diabetes or cause diabetes?
The question in case you didn't hear it was, what would cause diabetes? In 2002, the National Academy of Science and Medicine, they changed their name over. came up with a statistical anomaly among Vietnam veterans, exposure to Agent Orange and the occurrence of diabetes mellitus, adult onset diabetes. So they were saying people who served in country Vietnam were more susceptible to developing adult onset diabetes than the regular population. So the VA now says if you were exposed to Agent Orange, you're going to be presumed to, and you have diabetes, they're going to say that diabetes was caused by Agent Orange. That's where that came from. And it's not just there, again, the Air Force bases in Thailand, they used Agent Orange along the perimeter. So if you were in Thailand, it's a little more tricky because they said security personnel only. Since we're not security personnel, the VA is going to deny it, and then we're going to take it to appeal, and then we're going to challenge the VA on that. We won a number of those cases. It's Utapao Air Force Base. I've got one veteran who was exposed. His barracks was right on the fence line. Come on, you told me that guy wasn't exposed, and only the security people were. We ended up winning an appeal. Yes?
Surfing the web, I found that, along with like Camp Lejeune water, a lot of the bases have that water. There's photocarboons or something floating in the water. Is there anything more being done about other bases in the United States that have water issues?
I'm not aware of any studies right now to give you the straight answer. Just to give you an idea, typically simple claim, straightforward, to go to. I'm sorry. To give you an idea of the claims process with the VA, I understand that there's actually 3 different VAs. You got the VA Health Administration. Those are the doctors that are trying to take care of you. All they really care about is making sure that you're taken care of and you're healthy and you're in the best shape for the shape you're in. And then you've got the VA Benefits Administration. These are the guys who are looking at the benefits. These are the ones that you're sending a claim for service connection to, who are looking at health records and trying to plug a veteran into a specific law to determine disability ratings or eligibility for pension and those kind of issues. The other one, I'm glad to say none of the veterans in here are concerned with right now, that's the VA Cemetery Administration. So, and as long as I'm on the VA Cemetery Administration, I quickly say, does everybody know you can pre-register to be interned or wherever at the Abraham Lincoln Memorial Cemetery in Elderwerks? This is something they recently did. If your desire is to be buried at the National Cemetery, you can pre-register. So your family knows. Also, by pre-registering, the VA has all the VA Cemetery Administration has all your information. So your family doesn't have to go searching for it. They already know. So anyway, going back to the 3 different VAs, aside from the Health Administration and the Benefits Administration communicating with the Cemetery Administration, the Benefits Administration and the Health Administration aren't very good at communicating with each other. And they don't do it very well. A veteran can have a service-connected injury that he's being treated for decades, and the Health and the Benefits Administration will know nothing about it until the veteran tells them they have that condition, which is unfortunate. The worst case scenario I've had is a veteran was service-connected right out of the military for a knee condition. I met him about 30 years later. He was coming in, he was 20% for the knee condition, so it was a mild impairment when he got out. He was in a cane, he could no longer play golf. He could barely walk, and he was talking about knee replacement surgery. The Benefits Administration is required by law to ask the Health Administration once at least every 5 years to verify that the veteran still has that disability. They religiously did that every 5 years. Does the veteran still have a knee condition? Health administration, yes, thank you very much. They never considered how much worse that knee condition got. Not only did that service-connected knee get bad, but because of how poor his gait was when he was walking, his other knee went bad. By the time we were done, he was getting 60%, right up until his other knee needed knee replacement surgery. We had both knees service-connected in one of his hips because of all the damage he did favoring that bad knee for decades. And that's other things that happen. Anyway, regarding what I'm getting to, a typical claim, you're going to talk about 6 hours of face time with one of our service officers for us walking through everything the veteran needs to know and us trying to get the research and the packet together so we can present a good case to the VA and get that service-connected granted. That doesn't include the administration time that our service officers are doing. And I tried to explain this to our current board members before, and they thought I was nuts until somebody who's been through the process told them, have you ever had to deal with the VA benefits administration before? Of course they have. But some of the research we do is we're actually going to these websites like the National Academy of Sciences, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services to see what studies are being done. So in answer to your question, do I look for studies periodically on contaminated water or other contaminants on basis? Yes. Have I seen anything recently that suggests anything? No, not really. So to answer that question, does anybody have any questions at this point? Has anybody expressed any concerns about the VA that they want to share? You're all jumping up. I think I heard the question, did all Marines go to Camp Lejeune? No, but it seems like most of them sure did. At one point or another, it seems most landed in Camp Lejeune.
Usually it's Hamilton or
Yeah, you had a lot that went to Camp Hamilton, like you said, and you had a huge number go to Camp Lejeune. Camp Lejeune is a huge base. So they did a lot there, and a lot of people were there, and it wasn't just Marines. They had other branches there in joint services. I think they had other countries there who had some people trained. And I know that was the same with the Navy. I'm a sailor myself, so I didn't know as much about the Army. And us and the Marines always got along just like this.
especially at that time.
Oh, yeah. So anybody else have questions?
Do you have cards to give out?
Yeah, Cecilia has some cards she'll be happy to hand out. I think the biggest thing that I'd like to get across with you is I already expressed the size of the legal manual that we use just to do veterans benefits in general. If you have a question about VA benefits, don't hesitate to pick up the phone and give us a call. If you have family members who are thinking about whether or not they have benefits from their military service or their spouse's military service, don't be afraid to give them our phone number. We have clients outside of McHenry County. We have clients outside the state and outside the country that we help with as far as VA benefits. My furthest one right now is in Japan. So it's not unusual for us to have questions all over the map. Another common question I get is from veterans who are getting to a point where they don't want to work for somebody else, they want to start their own business. And as I recall, in the 1970s, the VA used to administer the VA home loan, business loan, kind of like the VA home loan. You know, I thought that was kind of humorous because the VA could barely manage their own business, and now they want to help you with yours. Since then, the VA has turned that over to the Small Business Administration. The Small Business Administration is one of those government agencies which actually does a phenomenal job with what they do. And I think part of it is because most of the people who work for them are business owners. They're actually managers and presidents of companies who are just simply trying to help people starting their business get their business off the ground. Locally here, the people to go see for that is at the Shaw Center. So if you know somebody who's a veteran, or you're a veteran yourself, who's thinking of starting a business, the Small Business Development Center over at the Shaw Center in McHenry is where you want to go to that's going to help you access the Small Business Administration and the people who work at the VA. People who work for the veterans. Don't ask the VA to help you with that. They're not going to be very helpful. So that's pretty much all I had. I wanted to really open this up to questions you may have. Yes, sir.
You through, I'd like to talk to you about it.
I'd be happy to. Happy to talk to you when you're through, and I'm happy to talk to anybody here after I'm done with this presentation. If nobody has any other questions, that's really all I have. I'm willing to stick around and talk to you one-on-one. Thank you very much, and I want to also thank Elderwerks for allowing me to come out and present today. And I also want to point out there's other agencies in McHenry County. The big thing is if you're looking for services from the VA and you're not sure how to access them, we strongly recommend you seek out an accredited veteran service officer to do that. And we have the Illinois Department of Veterans Affairs, you have ourselves, there are some other law attorneys who know some things about it. Either way, when you shop for insurance, you shop for a doctor, talk to the people, make sure you get along with that individual. If you don't, there's other people available that can help you. So know who you're working with as well. Thank you very much.